You are likely wasting money every single year on fertilizers and soil amendments that your garden doesn't even want. Most gardeners treat their soil like a guessing game, throwing bags of lime or bone meal at the ground and hoping for the best. But that's actually the fastest way to kill your plants before they even sprout. I've learned over the decades that there's a secret hidden in your dirt that determines if your summer will be a success or a total flop. I'm going to show you how to uncover that secret today while the ground is still sleepy. Hello there, I'm Eleanor, and it's so lovely to have you back here at the Gardening Standard. If you're new here, I just want you to know that everything I talk about comes from my own calloused hands and my own experience in the dirt over many, many years. I've made every mistake in the book, believe me. I've watched things wither, I've watched things rot, and I've spent many a summer afternoon wondering what on earth I was doing wrong. But that's how we grow, isn't it? We learn from the seasons that didn't go right so that the next one can be better. Now, I know it's January, it's cold, the sky is gray, and the last thing you probably want to think about is getting out into the garden. Most people think this is the time for staying inside with a hot cup of tea and a seed catalog. And while I love doing that too, I've found that January is actually the most important month for your soil. If you wait until April to check on your dirt, you've already missed your window to fix the big problems. It's like trying to fix the foundation of a house after you've already put the roof on. I want to tell you about the one thing that changed everything for me. For years, I just assumed my soil was fine. I'd add a little compost here and a little store-bought fertilizer there, but my plants always seemed to struggle with something. One year it was yellow leaves. The next year the fruit would rot on the vine before it was even ripe. I thought I just had bad luck. But then an old friend of mine told me about a test she did every winter right in her own kitchen. I tried it, and the results absolutely floored me. It turned out I was making one massive mistake that was poisoning my plants, and I had no idea. Before I show you how to do this test, we have to talk about why we're doing it now. See, soil isn't just dirt, it's a living, breathing thing. And like any living thing, it has a personality. Some soil is sour, some is sweet, and most of it is somewhere in between. In the gardening world, we call this pH. Now, don't let that fancy name scare you. All it means is whether your soil is acid or alkaline. And here's the kicker. If that number is off, your plants literally cannot eat. You could give them the most expensive food in the world, but their mouths are locked shut because the soil chemistry is wrong. Imagine you're at a beautiful banquet with all your favorite foods, but your hands are tied behind your back and your mouth is taped shut. That's exactly how a tomato plant feels in soil that's too acidic. It's surrounded by nutrients, but it can't pull them up through its roots. This is why so many gardeners get frustrated. They see their plants struggling, so they add more fertilizer. But adding more food to a plant that can't eat is just a waste of money. In fact, it can actually make the problem worse by building up salts in the dirt. So how do we find out if our plants are taped shut without spending a fortune on a laboratory test? Well, that's the beauty of what I'm going to show you today. You don't need a degree in science, and you don't need to send away a box of dirt in the mail. You just need two things from your kitchen pantry. But before we get to the mixing, there's a very specific way you have to collect your sample, or the whole test will give you the wrong answer. I remember one time I just scooped up some dirt from the very top of my flower bed. I ran the test, and it told me my soil was perfectly fine. But when summer came, my carrots were stunted and hairy. I realized later that the top inch of soil is very different from where the roots actually live. If you only test the surface, you're only getting half the story. To do this right, you need to go deep. You want to get down at least 6 inches, which is where most of your vegetable roots are going to be searching for their dinner. When you go out to your garden today, and yes, you might need a sturdy shovel if the ground is a bit frozen, I want you to take small samples from a few different spots. Don't just take from one corner. Your garden is like a patchwork quilt. One side might be different from the other, especially if you have trees nearby or if you've added different things to the soil over the years. I like to take about 5 or 6 little scoops from all over and mix them together in a clean bucket. This gives us an average of what's going on in the whole plot. Once you have your bucket of dirt, bring it inside and let it warm up. Soil is a bit like us. It doesn't like to talk when it's freezing cold. Let it sit on the counter until it's room temperature. While that's happening, you're going to go to your pantry and grab 2 things: plain old white vinegar and some baking soda. That's it. Those 2 humble ingredients are going to tell you more about your garden's future than any fancy gadget. Now, here is where the fun starts. We're going to split our soil sample into 2 separate glass jars or bowls. Make sure they're clean. We don't want any leftover soap or food messing with our results. In the first bowl, we're going to add a little bit of water, just enough to turn the soil into a muddy soup. Give it a good stir. Now take your baking soda and sprinkle a healthy spoonful right on top of that mud. If that soil starts to bubble and fizz like a school science project, I have some news for you. That fizzing means your soil is acidic. The baking soda, which is a base, is reacting to the acid in your dirt. Now, a little bit of acid isn't a bad thing. In fact, things like blueberries and azaleas love it. But if it fizzes like a soda pop, your soil might be too sour for your veggies. This is a huge aha moment for most people. If your soil is very acidic, your plants will have a hard time getting enough phosphorus and magnesium. That's often why you see those purple or yellow leaves in the spring. But what if nothing happens? What if you put that baking soda on and it just sits there like a lump on a log? Well, that's when we move to the second bowl. In this one, you don't need to add water first. Just take your dry or slightly damp soil and pour about half a cup of white vinegar right over it. If this bowl starts to fizz and bubble, it means your soil is alkaline or sweet. This is very common in parts of the country with a lot of limestone. While some plants don't mind it, if it's too alkaline, your plants will struggle to get iron. Have you ever seen a plant where the leaves are bright yellow but the veins are still green? That's iron chlorosis, and it's a classic sign that your soil is too sweet. The plant is literally starving for iron because the soil won't let it go. Now, you might be asking, or Eleanor, what if neither of them fizz? I've had that happen too. If you put baking soda on one and vinegar on the other and nothing happens at all, then you can take a deep breath and a little sigh of relief. That means your soil is neutral. It's right in the middle, which is exactly where most of our garden vegetables want to be. It's the Goldilocks zone. Not too sour, not too sweet, just right. But here is the part that most people miss, and it's why January is so critical. Let's say your soil fizzed like crazy with the baking soda, and you found out it's very acidic. You can't just fix that in 5 minutes. To change the personality of your soil, you usually have to add something like lime. But lime is slow. It's a slow moving traveler. If you put it down in May, it won't actually start working until the end of the summer. By then, your garden is already finished. By doing this test in January, you give yourself the gift of time. You can put down your amendments now, and as the winter rains and snow melt, they'll carry those minerals down into the earth. By the time you're ready to plant your first pea seeds in the spring, the soil chemistry will have shifted. You're setting the stage for a successful show before the actors even arrive. I remember one year my soil was incredibly alkaline. I did the vinegar test and it looked like a volcano. I was so worried, but because I found out in the winter, I was able to add some elemental sulfur and a lot of pine needles and compost. By the time my peppers went in the ground in June, they had exactly what they needed. If I hadn't tested, I would have just kept adding general fertilizer and wondering why my plants look so pale. I would have wasted money and ended up with a tiny harvest. There's another reason I love doing this in January. It keeps me connected to my garden when everything else is dormant. It reminds me that even though I can't see anything growing, there is a lot of work happening under the surface. It makes me feel like I'm a partner with my land. I'm listening to what it needs, and believe me, when you start listening to your soil, it starts rewarding you in ways you wouldn't believe. Now, I want to talk about one more thing that this test can tell you, and it's something people often overlook. It's about the texture of your soil. While you have those samples in the jars, I want you to look closely at them. After you've done your fizz test, add a bit more water to one of the jars, give it a real good shake, and then let it sit on the counter for a few hours. You'll see the soil start to settle in layers. The heavy sand will fall to the bottom first, then you'll see a layer of silt, and finally, on the very top, a layer of clay. If you have a huge layer of clay and almost no sand, your soil might be holding on to too much water, which can rot your roots. If it's all sand, the water is probably running through it like a sieve, taking all your nutrients with it. Knowing this now means you can spend your winter collecting leaves or straw or compost to mix in. Compost is the great equalizer, you know. It doesn't matter if your soil is too acid or too alkaline or too sandy or too clay heavy. Compost helps almost everything. It's like a warm hug for your dirt. But even compost works better when you know what you're starting with. I've seen so many people get discouraged and give up on gardening because they think they have a black thumb. They think they're just not good at it. But most of the time, it's not the gardener at all. It's the soil. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, but we forget that we're working with a living system. If the system is broken, no amount of hard work is going to fix it. This little test is the first step in fixing the system. I want you to promise me that you'll try this week. Go out, grab a couple of scoops of dirt, and play scientist in your kitchen for a few minutes. It's a wonderful project to do with grandkids, too. They love seeing the bubbles and the fizz, and it's a great way to teach them that there's more to the world than what we see on the surface. It teaches them that to get something good out of the earth, we have to put something good back into it. Once you have your results, don't panic if they aren't perfect. Very few of us have perfect soil. My garden has been a work in progress for 40 years, and I still find spots that need a little extra love. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Every little bit of organic matter you add, Every time you balance the pH just a tiny bit, you're making it easier for your plants to thrive. I've spent so many summers exhausted from fighting my garden, fighting the weeds, fighting the bugs, fighting the yellow leaves. But when I started taking care of the soil first, a lot of those problems just went away. Healthy plants in balanced soil can actually fight off bugs and diseases much better than weak plants. It's like how we stay healthier when we eat our vegetables and get our rest. This January soil test is the rest and the good food for your garden. It's the foundation for everything else we're going to do together this year. I'm so excited for you to see the difference it makes. When you're standing in your garden this July, surrounded by more tomatoes and cucumbers than you know what to do with, you'll look back on this cold January day and smile. You'll know that the secret wasn't in a bottle or a bag, but in a little bit of vinegar and a whole lot of heart. I've found that the more I learn about the garden, the more I realize how much there is still to learn. It keeps me young, I think. It keeps my mind sharp and my heart full, and I'm just so grateful that I get to share these little bits of wisdom with you. It makes me feel like I'm passing on a torch so that your gardens can be even more beautiful than mine. So don't let the cold keep you inside. Get out there for just a few minutes, get your hands a little dirty, and see what your soil has to tell you. It might just be the most important conversation you have all year, and remember, I'm right here with you every step of the way. We're going to have a wonderful season. I can feel it in my bones.